Hey guys, welcome back to my YouTube channel. My name is Daniel, as you know, and I have taken a sort of almost 3-year break from YouTube to focus on things in life and sort of medical school and everything else in between. But this year I had some free time. I wanted to sort of come back slowly to YouTube to sort of answer any questions you guys have and continue to give you guys good content in terms of like what will be most helpful to you as you navigate the application process, medical school applications, interviews, being an international student. And so I really want to use this video to sort of quickly give you an update with regard to what I'm doing right now, where I've been all this while, and also like what kind of content I'm hoping to sort of create going forward. I think the last video I posted on my channel was describing the day in the life of an Emory medical student, or I think it was 73 questions with an Emory medical student. And I wanted to continue that series, but things got a little harder to do during COVID, filming and everything when I moved over here to Boston, and I decided to just focus solely on school for that first year. First year was also pretty busy, med school, in terms of lots of exams pretty much every 2 to 3 weeks, and pretty much a demanding schedule. And I think it was also harder for me to film content and continue in med school, so I wanted to focus more solely on my studies. And over the last 3 years, a lot has happened. I have completed my first year, completed my preclinical. I don't know if you guys remember, but my preclinical sort of structure at Harvard is about a year to 13 months. So it's very like abbreviated. And then after that, we go into clinical rotations, which lasts about a year. And during that clinical rotations in your second year, you're doing a lot of sort of, moving from one specialty to another and doing a 1 month to 3 month rotation on, say, a pediatric specialty, or internal medicine rotation or surgery rotations. You as a student get an idea of what kinds of fields you might be interested in, and also figure out how you fit into the medical system, what you want to do after med school. And after preclinical, and I think preclinical ended about September, October, my second year. So right at the start of my second year of med school. And so I jumped into clinical rotations. The first rotation I had was psychiatry, sort of radiology and neurology, which is a 3-set series on 1 month long rotations that like basically are considered more of the quote unquote chill rotations, in the sense that it's not as busy or demanding of a schedule typically. Like psychiatry is great. I don't know if you guys remember, but I've done a ton of work in mental health advocacy and awareness, and I was sort of really interested in that. So I did my psych rotation and I really loved it. But I think I realized that psychiatry was not necessarily what I thought I wanted to do in medicine. I love the psych rotation. I love taking care of patients with mental health issues and trying to figure out the diagnosis of what they had. And it was such an interesting rotation, though a short one, at Massachusetts General Hospital. But I think I ultimately realized that I wanted to do something more hands-on. And while psychiatry was so mentally stimulating for me in terms of figuring out how does someone develop a manic episode, what are the processes that happen that allow someone to go from a quote-unquote normal functioning state to a diseased state, I think I eventually realized that I was more interested in understanding why and how that happens than necessarily the day-to-day life of a psychiatrist. I didn't necessarily see myself in that role in the future. An additional interest of mine, like I mentioned before, is mental health advocacy. And so I also see myself in the psych space potentially doing something with global health, advocating for mental health awareness. Those are the kinds of roles I see myself playing, understanding the path of phys, and also like more on the ground advocacy work in mental health. But doing the day-to-day as a psychiatrist didn't really cut it for me. I felt like something was missing. I decided to explore surgical specialties. Interestingly enough, I did not do my surgery rotation until the very end of my sort of year-long clinical rotations in second year. And so it took me a while to really decide on what specialty I was going to do. Like I started my sort of first 3-month series in second year. I did psych, I did neurology, which was also really fascinating, learning about the brain. And then my last one was radiology, which I also thought was really cool. Getting to sort of read x-rays, CTs, MRI scans, and figure out the diagnosis. It felt very like analytical, which I think I tend to be pretty analytical. I think that really worked well for me, but ultimately I didn't like the fact that there was very little patient interaction in radiology. After radiology, I went into a 3-month stint in internal medicine. Got to see lots of different sort of specialties within internal medicine: cardiology, hematology, gastroenterology, all the different subspecialties. I think coming in, I was most interested in cardiology because I've always thought the heart was fascinating, and I was like, you know what, I could see myself being a cardiologist, a heart doctor, really diagnosing and sort of helping patients through tough times with heart failure or all kinds of illnesses. Ultimately, though, I think the one thing I sort of truly gained the most out of my medicine rotation was just the ability to diagnose a patient, going through the whole process of seeing a patient present with XYZ symptoms, so understanding how do you put all this together, how do you present a patient around, how do you think through the diagnosis of a patient, what are the differential diagnoses, and in medicine that basically means what are the other possible diagnoses that a patient might have besides what you think the actual diagnosis is. And so that's also important because you want to keep a broad differential, so you're not just honing on one diagnosis while possibly missing other diagnoses. I think that was very cerebral and that was very interesting to think about. But ultimately, I don't think I necessarily enjoy the long hours of rounding on a patient. And so the typical order of the day is that you wake up in the morning, 6, 7 a.m., come to the hospital, do a round on a patient. Rounding basically means you go around the floor and sort of check in on all of the patients you have for the day, see how they're doing, do a quick physical exam maybe. And that round's like what you do solo as a medical student, right? And then you come in later on, at 9 a.m. in the morning, and you do another set of rounds, which can last 3, 4, 5 hours with the medical team, including the resident, the attending, sometimes the pharmacist, the nurses. All of you discuss what the patient, any new presenting symptoms the patient has, any events that happen overnight, and sort of what is the best plan and management strategy for this patient today, right? And so that was all really cool. You got to every single day get an update on the patient, also change your management plan as necessary for the patient. But ultimately, I still felt like something was lacking. And then I moved in after my medicine rotation to pediatrics and also OB-GYN, which I loved. I love kids. Pediatrics was really interesting because I was on the peds floor, peds ICU, and I got to see acute cases of really tiny little babies going through some of the worst diagnoses. It was sort of hard to see that sometimes, but also interesting to see how well kids can do even after sort of struggling with an illness. It's so resilient, and it's so cool to see that. And I think the interesting thing about my peds block was that you also learn to work with families, because a lot of times kids can't really express themselves with what exactly is going on when they have a complaint. And so it's on you as a physician to figure out ways to understand what the kids might be going through. And I think that's really interesting because you have to rely on both verbal and nonverbal cues to understand the crying baby, for example. And so it was really, really cool. And then I went on to OB-GYN, which is obstetrics and gynecology. Got to deliver some babies, really fascinating. Got to pull out a baby's head out of the mother's, vaginal canal, which is so crazy to actually see how that's done. I'm a twin and I was delivered via C-section, and so it was fascinating to also even get to do a C-section with my attending and get to see how, the baby is taken out of the womb and the whole surgical technique and incisions. And I think that was my real first exposure to surgery. And so it really got me interested in what could career as a surgeon be like. I thought, obstetrics and gynecology was super cool. And then, my last rotation, like I mentioned, was surgery. And so I had a 3-month rotation in surgery. Got to see, many subspecialties: orthopedics, neurosurgery, plastic surgery. Got to see anesthesia, got to do a general surgery block, which was really, really fascinating. Getting to see acute cases of patients coming in with, say, a gunshot injury or, a fall or, really sometimes life-threatening injuries. And then you have to figure out how to triage a patient. You also have to do how to do a primary survey, a secondary survey. In that setting, a lot of times you're thinking about what is the biggest thing that could kill this patient. So you have to figure it out. You're doing a quick physical exam, figuring out the ABCDEs of medicine and surgery. And if you haven't, learned that, I'm sure you will. You hear about that at some point. It was really cool. I think what I enjoyed the most about that rotation eventually was having to do a 2-week block of orthopedic surgery, which is something I was always considering. I was really torn between neurosurgery and orthopedic surgery because I thought both specialties were really fascinating. As a kid, I was kind of inspired by Ben Carson, who was, a black man who, I think I was like 8 years old when I got his book as a present, or when I got his book as a gift for, sort of doing well in school, back in high school. And I was like, wow, who is this guy? I read about him, how he came from nothing to becoming a really well-accomplished neurosurgeon. And I was like, wow, this is what I want to do with my life. This is so interesting. And so I really, considered neurosurgery, and like, I thought the brain was fascinating, and it was a nice way to combine my interest in the brain and understanding how people think with also doing something hands-on. However, I considered orthopedic surgery, which is a specialty that basically allows you to work on the musculoskeletal system. So you get to work on patients with fracture, fix a broken bone. You get to work and operate in all parts of the body, from shoulder injury to knee injury, knee replacements for older people, foot and ankles, spine surgery you can even do. And so it allows you this versatility that I didn't necessarily find with neurosurgery. And so I was also wanted to consider it. And ultimately came down to how I saw myself making the biggest impact in medicine. And, what I really truly care about is how I can be the best physician I can be for my patients in the future, and to do a specialty that I also would enjoy and have the ability to innovate. Because I think one thing I've realized over the years is that I am the most happy and most excited, within anything, whether that's medicine or outside of medicine, when I'm doing something innovative, when I'm thinking of a new idea, when I'm being creative. And so I thought, within orthopedics, there's a lot of opportunity for thinking about new ways to solve old problems, a lot of opportunity for research, and even a lot of opportunity for global health work, which, is so important, especially in the realm of orthopedic surgery, especially thinking about the implications in, countries like Nigeria, where I'm from, and also low-income countries, and figuring out tools and strategies and resources that can be implemented in those areas. And ultimately, it came down to orthopedic surgery for me. And, now I am doing an additional 5th year, which basically means an extra year, doing clinical research at Boston Children's Hospital here in Boston still. And I'm doing some research in pediatric orthopedic surgery, specifically related to the spine. And my research is focused on kids with scoliosis. And so the goal is to really understand that more and figure out new strategies and new tools to, help patients feel better. So, I'm really happy with the choice I have so far. Someday that's the thing back to neurosurgery. I'm like, that's a really cool specialty. But, I love orthopedic surgery. I've met some amazing mentors, met some, amazing classmates within the field as well. And I'm really excited to see what my career as an orthopedic surgeon would be like. Ultimately, I wanted to end this video asking you guys, what kinds of videos do you want to see me make in the future? I've taken an almost 3-year break from this, and I want to come back and ultimately give you guys the content that will be most beneficial to you. I have many ideas. I'm thinking about doing the live videos, describing what my life is like as a medical student, the process of applying to residency as I apply over the next year, international student experiences. Continue to give you guys tips about the application process to medical school, especially as an international student, and and many more ideas, interviewing people. I think I've met a lot of students and physicians and people here who are really interested in cool stories and backgrounds about how they got here. And, I think it's been really fascinating to share their stories with you guys, whether that's through an interview, a quick sort of video in their lives. And, so I have many ideas around things like that. And so I really want you guys to, let me know what are the things you want to see the most. I'm also thinking about doing some fitness stuff and how I sort of balance medicine and fitness. And so the floor is open, really. So it's up to you guys. Please just let me know, what do you think would be the most beneficial to you? Leave a comment. And, I hope to continue to post more videos like this. And I'll see you guys in the next video.